Welcome to Crossroads of Health, where common sense and good science intersect, with your hosts Rick Simpson and Melanie Martorana. And now it's time for Crossroads of Health.
Good morning, and thank you once again for tuning in to Crossroads of Health, where common sense and good science intersect. Always real, always unscripted. I'm your host, Rick Simpson.
And I'm your co-host, Melanie Martorana. So, Rick, why don't you lead us off with the talking points for this week? We've got some interesting stuff.
Oh, yes, I'd love to. Well, I used to work with this medical doctor. She has since retired. Actually, even after she retired from practice, she came to work for me, and she used to do research for me, and that was really what I wanted. Her name is Anita Millen, and she had a tremendous history in bionutritional or integrative medicine, and when I brought her on, I hired her just to do research. She would end up getting maybe 50 journals a month from different doctors, different groups that were nutritionally oriented, and then she would take that literature and put it down into what I called snippets. And I just have dozens and dozens and dozens of these snippets that she produced. And they were really on things that were of interest to me and I think will be of interest to you. And one of the areas that I want to talk about today was the area of antibacterial solutions that are available out there. And my wife really likes to use antibacterial solutions with my children. And at one point I asked Anita, I said, can you just do a snippet for me on this? I really want to know. So what she brought back was actually a two-part series. I'm going to share both of those with you today, but on the potential harmful effects of many of these antibacterial preparations. When it comes to a lot of antibacterial preparations, some of them are alcohol-based, which is not so problematic, but a lot of them have two active constituents, chemicals actually, either called triclosan or triclocarbon, and both of those have some problems associated with them. The first thing is when you use triclosan or triclocarbon, according to the research, they need to be on the surface of your skin for a minimum of 2 minutes to be effective. And I would venture to guess, based on how these things are made, that they are not on your skin for that period of time. And so they're really, according to Anita, they're really not even effective. And so that's the first problem, is effectiveness. And then the second thing is it's also been shown that these two ingredients can give rise to resistant organisms. I think a lot of people are familiar with antibiotic resistant bacteria. Well, many things like this that are antibacterial and raw materials like that, they give rise to these resistant organisms, which can be a real problem with the kind of illness that's going around these days. You can take something and it's really not helpful because you've got some sort of super strain of a bacteria going on. Another study, they took some sewage sludge and found that 75% of the triclocarbon flushed down the sewers survived processing and ended up on the farm fields where it can accumulate in the soil and ultimately get back into the water supply. Now, people might ask, well, why is that a problem? Well, that brings me to my next point regarding these two active ingredients. There was a study done on bullfrogs exposed to triclosan with levels found in streams, and they discovered that their thyroid function was disturbed. There are a number of studies going on that are showing that these two ingredients can really disrupt hormone production in the body, testosterone, thyroid. That can lead to things like fatigue, decreased bone density, infertility, depression, poor concentration, a lot of different things. And so that was a big problem with these two ingredients also. And many of you know that there's so much thyroid malfunction that's going on out there. Women with hypothyroid, there's actually something called reverse T3. T3 is one of the active constituents needed for proper thyroid function. It actually shows proper thyroid function. When you have reverse T3, it has the opposing effect. And I asked Dr. Stenger, I said, well, what causes that? And his guess was that it's related to a lot of these hormone disruptions in the body. So bottom line is there's just a lot of issues involved with these two active ingredients. If you're going to use these preparations, then you really need to make sure that you're using an alcohol-based one. And I would not recommend using them on an ongoing basis. I would use them in an emergency situation. And generally, you should just wash your hands with warm water and some sort of soap that doesn't have triclosan or triclocarbon in it.
Well, Rick, one of the things that's really interesting is that there's a few places where people typically expect to find triclosan, and that is in, these instant hand sanitizers and in a lot of the antibacterial soaps. But I actually pulled up a list that is really surprising. That you would be, I think, surprised at how many other places it can be found. So yes, you've got it in the soaps, but it's also being found in some dental care, some mouthwashes, some toothbrushes, some toothpaste. It's also in cosmetics, deodorants, other personal care products like shave gels, sponges and wipes. First aid, that's a place that I might expect to find it. But kitchenware, one of the other things that I thought was really interesting is you find it in computer equipment, cordless keyboards, and mouse pads, also on the bottom of staplers in the rubber.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, clothing.
That's
Rick,
just shocking.
Your socks.
Oh my gosh. And it's just triclosan and triclocarbon. I don't think we can avoid this in our environment completely, but it's like, I don't want to purposely put that on my hands. In addition, we're assaulted as it is, but there's so many hormone disruption issues in people out there. We need to be careful. So this is just our warning to all of you. Watch out for these ingredients, because our perspective is these are not really truly beneficial to you. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week.